Turntables.fm made music social again, then licenses killed it. In May 2011, something magical happened on the internet. A website called Turntables.fm launched that would fundamentally change how people discovered and shared music online. Picture this: virtual rooms where anyone could become a DJ, spinning tracks for friends and strangers while cartoon avatars bobbed to the beat. Users could queue up as DJs, taking turns playing songs from a vast library, while others voted tracks up or down with heart and lame buttons. It was brilliantly simple and addictively social. Within just 4 months, Turntable.fm exploded from 0 to over 140,000 daily active users, with people spending an average of 68 minutes per session. Musicians, celebrities, and regular folks alike were creating rooms, building communities around shared musical tastes, and discovering incredible new artists. The platform raised $7.5 million in Series A funding, with investors convinced they'd found the future of music consumption. Major brands like Coca-Cola and Honda started sponsoring virtual rooms. Even President Obama's campaign created an official turntable room during the 2012 election. For a brief, shining moment, Turntable.fm proved that music could be social, interactive, and fun again in the digital age. But behind the scenes, a battle was brewing that would ultimately destroy everything they'd built. The genius of Turntable.fm lay in its execution of a deceptively simple concept. Co-founder Billy Chasen had previously sold his company Sticky Bits to Microsoft for $13.2 million, giving him both the credibility and resources to tackle the complex world of music licensing. The platform launched with legal agreements from all major record labels and over 20 million licensed tracks, making it completely legitimate from day one. Users entered themed rooms like indie rock, electronic, hip-hop, or completely niche spaces like 8-bit Nintendo music or obscure 70s funk. The DJ system was elegantly designed with a maximum of 5 DJs per room, each represented by a cartoon avatar that would dance and move to the rhythm. The voting system created instant feedback loops, where good song choices earned hearts and DJ points, while poor selections got users booted from the DJ booth after too many lames. Chat functionality let users discuss the music in real time, creating genuine conversations about artists, albums, and musical history. Power users emerged who became known for their exceptional curation skills, building followings across multiple rooms. The platform even introduced virtual currency called DJ Points that users could spend on avatar upgrades and special privileges. Celebrity musicians like John Mayer, Questlove from The Roots, and members of bands like LCD Soundsystem regularly DJ'd in rooms, creating unprecedented access between artists and fans. By early 2012, Turntable.fm had become a cultural phenomenon that extended far beyond just playing music. The platform hosted official album listening parties where artists would premiere new releases, with thousands of users joining synchronized playback sessions while chatting about each track. Major music blogs like Pitchfork and Stereogum created official rooms where their writers would DJ alongside readers, breaking down the traditional barriers between critics and audiences. Underground and independent artists found that getting played in popular turntable rooms could drive significant traffic to their Bandcamp and SoundCloud pages, creating a new pathway for music discovery that didn't rely on traditional gatekeepers. The platform's community developed its own culture and etiquette, with unwritten rules about not playing the same artist back-to-back and respecting the room's stated genre focus. Users created elaborate themed events, like Decades Nights where only music from specific years could be played, or battles between different cities' music scenes. The social aspect was so compelling that many users reported staying up until 3 or 4 a.m. just to keep DJing and chatting with friends they'd made on the platform. Music journalists began writing about Turntable.fm as a return to the communal experience of listening to music, comparing it to gathering around radios or sharing mixtapes, but with global reach and instant access to virtually any song ever recorded. However, beneath this creative renaissance lurked the fundamental problem that would eventually kill Turntable.fm. The economics of music licensing were completely unsustainable. Unlike Spotify or Pandora, which negotiated licensing deals based on predictable usage patterns and subscription revenue, Turntable.fm had created something entirely new that didn't fit existing royalty structures. The platform paid performance royalties to ASCAP, BMI, and SESAC for the right to play music. But these rates were designed for traditional radio stations with advertiser revenue and predictable listener numbers. Turntable.fm's model was more complex because users were actively selecting and broadcasting music to others, which meant higher royalty rates than passive listening services. The company was paying approximately 0.022 cents per song play to performance rights organizations, but also owed mechanical royalties to publishers and master recording fees to labels. With users often playing 30 to 40 songs per hour in each room, and hundreds of active rooms running simultaneously, the royalty costs were astronomical. Even more problematic was that Turntable.fm's revenue model was essentially non-existent in the early days. They had no subscription fees, minimal advertising, and their virtual currency system generated trivial income compared to their licensing obligations. The math was simple and devastating. Every additional user made the service more expensive to operate while contributing virtually nothing to revenue. The death spiral began in earnest during 2012 when record labels started demanding higher royalty payments and more restrictive licensing terms. The major labels had initially been willing to experiment with Turntable.fm's innovative approach, but as the platform grew, they began viewing it as competition to their own digital strategies rather than a promotional tool. Sony Music Entertainment was the first to significantly increase their licensing demands, followed quickly by Universal Music Group and Warner Music Group. The labels argued that Turntable.fm's interactive streaming service was more valuable than traditional radio and should pay rates similar to on-demand streaming platforms like Spotify, which at the time was paying roughly $0.003 to $0.005 per stream. For a platform where users might hear 200 to 300 songs in a single session, these rates would make operation impossible. Simultaneously, music publishers through organizations like the National Music Publishers Association began pushing for higher mechanical royalty rates, arguing that user-selected playlists deserved premium compensation compared to algorithmically generated radio stations. International expansion became virtually impossible as foreign collection societies demanded even higher rates and more complex reporting requirements. The company's legal and licensing costs skyrocketed to over $2 million annually just to maintain their existing catalog, while revenue remained stubbornly flat at around $500,000 per year. By late 2012, Turntable.fm was burning through their venture capital funding at an alarming rate, with licensing costs consuming over 60% of their total expenses. The company attempted several desperate pivots to save the platform. They introduced premium memberships at $9.99 per month, but fewer than 3% of users converted to paid accounts. They experimented with display advertising, but the engaged nature of their user base actually worked against them since people were focused on music and chat rather than banner ads. Brand sponsorship deals with companies like McDonald's and Vitamin Water generated some revenue, but nowhere near enough to cover their spiraling licensing obligations. The company launched Turntable Live, featuring scheduled DJ sets from famous musicians, hoping to create appointment viewing that could command premium advertising rates. They even tried expanding internationally, launching a version for users in Canada and the UK, but foreign licensing proved even more expensive than domestic rights. Most tragically, they attempted to negotiate directly with independent labels and publishers for more favorable rates, but discovered that the major labels' pricing had become the industry standard that everyone else followed. Each month brought new licensing demands and legal threats from rights holders who viewed Turntable.fm's success as money being stolen from their own digital properties. The beginning of the end came in early 2013 when ASCAP announced new rate structures specifically targeting interactive music services that would increase Turntable.fm's costs by an estimated 300%. The Digital Millennium Copyright Act provided some protections for passive streaming services, but Turntable.fm's user-directed model fell into a legal gray area that offered few safeguards against escalating royalty demands. The company's burn rate had reached $400,000 per month, with their remaining venture capital funding projected to last only through the summer. Desperate to find a sustainable business model, they launched Turntable Mobile for iPhone and Android devices, hoping mobile users would be more willing to pay for premium features. The mobile apps actually attracted 200,000 downloads in their first month, but the conversion rate to paying customers remained below 2%. Behind the scenes, co-founder Billy Chasen was spending most of his time in lawyers' offices and record label conference rooms, trying to negotiate deals that could keep the platform alive. The major labels had moved from grudging cooperation to open hostility, with several executives publicly stating that Turntable.fm was cannibalizing sales from iTunes and other legitimate music stores. Independent artists and smaller labels pleaded with the majors to keep the platform alive, arguing that Turntable.fm had become their most effective tool for reaching new audiences, but their voices carried little weight in licensing negotiations. The final nail in Turntable.fm's coffin came when their Series B funding round completely collapsed in summer 2013. The company had been seeking $15 million in new investment to cover licensing costs and expand internationally, but potential investors had become spooked by the music industry's increasingly aggressive stance toward interactive streaming platforms. Venture capital firms that had initially shown interest pulled out after conducting due diligence on the company's licensing obligations and projected costs. The streaming music landscape was rapidly consolidating around subscription-based models like Spotify and Pandora, both of which had massive user bases and clear paths to profitability that Turntable.fm couldn't match. On December 2, 2013, the company announced they were shutting down the service immediately, citing licensing costs and the challenge of making a profitable business as the primary reasons. The announcement devastated the platform's community of over 500,000 registered users who had formed genuine friendships and discovered countless new artists through the service. Musicians who had built followings on Turntable.fm lost a direct connection to their most engaged fans. Music bloggers and critics mourned the loss of what many considered the most innovative music discovery platform ever created. In their final blog post, the founders revealed that they had paid over $8 million in licensing fees during their brief existence, while generating only $2.3 million in revenue, making their failure a mathematical certainty rather than a management mistake. The death of Turntable.fm represents one of the most tragic examples of how music industry licensing can strangle innovation in its crib. The platform had solved fundamental problems with digital music consumption by making it social, interactive, and community-driven, creating genuine value for both listeners and artists that traditional streaming services couldn't replicate. Independent musicians lost one of their most effective discovery channels, while music fans lost a unique way to connect with others who shared their tastes. The company's failure sent a chilling message to other entrepreneurs who might have attempted similar innovations, essentially ensuring that future music platforms would stick to safer, more traditional models rather than risk licensing annihilation. Several attempts to recreate Turntable.fm's magic have emerged over the years, including Plug.dj and Discord music bots, but none have been able to secure the major label licenses necessary to provide the comprehensive music catalog that made the original special. The major record labels, having killed Turntable.fm, have never created anything to replace the unique value it provided, instead focusing on passive consumption models that generate higher per-stream revenues, but eliminate the communal aspects that made music discovery exciting. Today, as streaming services increasingly rely on algorithmic recommendations and playlist placement, the loss of Turntable.fm feels even more significant as an example of what might have been. The platform's brief existence proved that people hunger for social music experiences beyond just sharing playlists or posting about songs on social media, but the music industry's licensing structure remains fundamentally hostile to the kind of innovation that could bring those experiences back. In the end, Turntable.fm didn't fail because users didn't want it, or because the technology wasn't viable, or because the founders made critical mistakes. It failed because the music industry chose short-term licensing revenue over long-term innovation, killing one of the most beloved music platforms ever created in service of protecting business models that were already becoming obsolete.